Hello and good evening, all. You know what time it is? Time for Healthy Living on Source Radio Network with my amazing radio sister, Kathy B, as your hostess. And we're about to go live now, and we've already called into the show, and we're ready.
Good evening, Source Nation. Good evening, and welcome to Healthy Living. We have about 35 minutes before we lose a live feed. Telephone number to reach us is 619-924-0933. Again, 619-924-0933. And of course, I am your host, Kathy B. Well, tonight is going to be another amazing conversation with Dr. Julissa Hernandez. But before I let you guys know what we'll be speaking on tonight, I have to thank some amazing people because we would not be here without them. And they are Meet My Tights Matchmaking, Blended Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Urban Grandstand Digital, and New Covenant Appraised Worship Center. Well, you guys know that we have had some great talks right here on Healthy Living for the last few weeks. We are really beginning to understand the important principles of really, fertility and having a healthy reproductive system. So if you're tuning in, Source Nation, and this is your first time hearing about what we're talking about, I'm going to just wrap it up real quick and let you know that we are talking about the preservation of sex. That's right, Dr. Julissa and I have been talking some real good things over the last now 5 weeks. So you guys have to tune in tonight and definitely go back out on social media to where you can begin to hear some of the conversations that we have been speaking on. But you guys know that Dr. Julissa actually has a brand new book, which is The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. And as I stated, of course, we'll be speaking on that matter, but also reproductive health. And tonight's conversation, get this, Source Nation, I am ready for this. Proper timing of orgasm. Proper timing of orgasm. So I know that my good friend, our good friend, Dr. Julissa Hernandez is here in the studio with us so she can give us more information about proper timing of orgasm. Dr. Julissa, hello and welcome to Healthy Living. How are you this evening?
I'm feeling amazing, and you just made me giggle and chuckle when you said after that statement. I love it. I love it. I love how we're getting a bit naughty and a bit frisky in this conversations for the past five weeks. And that hopefully we're all over 18 listening to these conversations. I pray so, because we're talking about a lot of taboo stuff, and it's fun.
It is.
Yes.
It really is. Well, I'm excited again. Thank you so much for coming back into the studio with us tonight to give us some great information in reference to Principle 5. But before we start on that, Dr. Julissa, if you will, because we have brand new family members that are listening in tonight and definitely excited about what we're going to discuss. But if you can introduce yourself to them, that would be great.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Kathy. Hello, Source Radio family, and hello, Facebook family. I'm Dr. Julissa Hernandez, naturopathic doctor, practicing now for over 22 years, international speaker of natural medicine, a teacher of natural medicine, a practitioner of holistic, naturopathic, and Chinese medicine as well, a radio and television personality, and am honored to be a part of the Source Radio family here with all of you tonight. Thank you once again for having me, Kathy.
Awesome. Well, again, Source Nation, you are listening live right here on Healthy Living. And tonight's conversation is all about proper timing of orgasm. We are actually doing a 10-week series here on Healthy Living in reference to really begin to understand how we can heighten your sexual experience. And as I stated in the brand new book that Dr. Julissa has written, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, also which fertility is very important. We know that there are a lot of couples that are wanting to bring new life into the world. So we are going to talk about that, but yet we're going to also understand how we can continue to keep our reproductive systems very healthy. So with that being said, Dr. Julissa, we know that in our sexual experience, orgasm
Mm-hmm.
is something that of importance. We've talked about it. Of course, you and I talked about this over a number of years, and then of course we talked about it last week. But let's give Source Nation, if we can, a full understanding of orgasm and why is it so important when we are intimate with our partners. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not all of what intimacy between two people encompasses, but it is one of those amazing, pleasurable moments during the time of intimacy and sex between you and a partner. It is ultimately important because it makes us feel also very satisfied, although one can still, if we look at, for example, tantric sex, I'm practicing tantric sex where we really focus on how pleasurable it is to give our partner pleasure. And Taoists are practitioners of that and so on and their teachings. But part of pleasing your partner and that bringing you pleasure also brings about knowing that you brought your partner to the ultimate of pleasure, knowing that you can help them achieve orgasm and vice versa when your partner helps you do the same. It's as if you know that you've done a good job, in other words, and that you've reached that heightened state of pleasure. So, and I do have to say this carefully, it's not necessary to have pleasurable, intimate moments with your partner, but it is a significant part of that heightened moment of sexual experience and sexual joy and sexual pleasure that one can experience. With regards to fertility, and I state this also within my book in the naturopathic approach to fertility, and we're referencing pages 136 to 141, where we're talking about principle 5 tonight of the 10 principles of life preservation according to sex and Chinese medicine. And I state there how it really isn't necessary for a woman to achieve orgasm so that she can conceive. All right. However, it does show in studies that during orgasm, it is a way for the woman's body to carry the sperm to fertilize the egg. So there is a benefit, but it has shown in studies it's not necessary, but it can't help. It can only enhance and increase the possibility of a couple and the woman actually conceiving.
Great information there. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to, if I may, I want to go back to something that you have written here in Principle 5, and you talked about, as you just mentioned here, that there have been studies where it says that now show that female orgasms is not necessary to conceive. Female orgasms has been shown to help and promote sperm transport. Mm-hmm. So really begin to take your time, rise and fall with each other, whisper in each other's ears what you're feeling during the wonderful time that you're locked into pleasure. Mm-hmm. Now, I view that, despite that point said, I view that as a bonding experience, yes. A bonding time, yes. Between you and your partner or your mate, however you want to look at that. Mm-hmm. As I stated before, I believe communication is very key in a relationship, and I think it's very key when you are within intimate moments. Mm-hmm. Let's talk with Source Nation about that, because I think that is very important as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's most definitely something that also encompasses the ego, and some may be shocked a bit by my mentioning that, but as I state here, and I'll quote a little bit of what I've written here, something that I do feel is a truly marvelous benefit to creating a closer bond during sex is taking the time to let go of the ego and to just feel each other. With that, I also add that letting go of the ego and feeling that you're not the only one that needs to receive pleasure. Remember that if a lot of you really do take into account spirituality and so on, we know that part of happiness is bringing happiness to someone else. So it's clear to also relate that to pleasure. Part of sexual pleasure is giving sexual pleasure to someone else. So feeling your partner, rising in pleasure during sexual intercourse, taking the time to close one's eyes and feel each other's energy, I feel is extremely important. Taking your time to move in rhythm together, waiting until both of you are about to achieve the orgasm. You can feel from your partner that rise among them. You know that many of you can. And if both of you can wait to just hold on to where both of you are almost at that heightened close level, and you can wait to then explode in ecstasy together, is just a wonderful part of lovemaking that many people don't take into consideration, and they can just explode in each other's arms in that wonderful ecstasy moment of bonding. And that's something that many people probably are not practicing just as much. It's usually, okay, let me pleasure you, you orgasm, okay, now you do me, and then, I orgasm. And I've had that with patients that share that with me here in the office. If I'm dealing with a couple that obviously I may be helping with fertility, or maybe it's just because I'm helping them with some sexual dysfunction that couple is having, whether it's either frigidity within her, or erectile dysfunctions and impotence within him, and enhancing their sexual experience in every sense of the word. That bonding is very important to me so that they can feel the emotions that surge in that time of physical pleasure at the same time.
Good information. Thank you, Dr. Julissa, for sharing that with us. Now, I want to, if I may, transition over because I actually found an article that relates to what we're speaking of. Yes. And of course, Source Nation, any article or any information that I source outside of what we normally would speak on in reference to Dr. Julissa's book, I will let you all know. I found this article, Dr. Julissa, in Women's Day, and it spoke of the 9 best times to have sex. Okay. And one of the key areas that they focused in on is understanding both your schedule and your partner's schedule, i.e. your mate. Mm-hmm. And it says that they call it the sensual schedule. So being sensual with your partner. And they said that, timing is very important when you're wanting to conceive or when you're wanting to have sex with your partner. Mm-hmm. So it says that you probably heard that the ideal time of the month to really begin to conceive is when you're ovulating. Mm-hmm. And they stated that usually this is in the middle of your menstrual cycle, between the 11th and the 21st day, depending on the person. Yes. But what you did not realize is that certain times of the day, your body peaks where it is going through or has the feel of being sexual.
Yes.
And at that moment of time, this is when sex can be the most satisfying between the two. What are your thoughts on that? And is that true?
Absolutely. It is absolutely true. Now, remember that what we're referencing here is what I discuss in great detail from pages 136 to 141 in my new book regarding the 10 principles of life preservation. And part of that is Chinese medicine teaches us that the 4-hour interval between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. is known as circulation sex time. In Chinese medicine, it's viewed that 4-hour interval of the day tends to be the time when sexuality can be the most pleasurable, and it's also considered a time of day where a woman is more susceptible to conceiving, and her fertility is in its highest peak during her ovulation time in that 4-hour interval. So, yes, that also is considered the time of the pancreas, which I believe is it totally makes sense because the 4 hour interval of 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. is when the pancreas works the hardest. But guess what? In Chinese medicine, we know that this is the organ that regulates body temperature. So here we are. The organ, yes, that organ is working the hardest in that 4 hour interval. And so for you to just think about it, when you feel sexual urges, your body feels warmer. You feel slightly warm. She said, oh, you're funny. It is the case. So even a man will feel a warm surge within his core. A woman will feel the same. And it absolutely makes sense when you think of how when we're in a heightened state of pleasure, the pancreas is most likely doing more of its job, and it is working the hardest in that 4 hour interval. And so body temperature increases usually around this time of day. Okay. And so, being that it's also, yes, related to circulation sex time, that whole heat that rises within us, if you think about it, even your loins become warmer when you're in a state of heightened sexual pleasure. Why is that? Again, body temperature increases. If it's specifically the time of day between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. that you're going to have sex, you're going to feel that increase of heat all over throughout your body, and also rush of blood flow going to the genital region. This also increases heat. So yes, it absolutely makes sense. 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. is the ideal time that's considered in Chinese medicine be the perfect time to have sex.
Okay, I like that. I'm making a mental note. I was chuckling a little bit. I said, well, obviously, Chinese medicine does not apply to Kathy B because I'm like that all the time during the day.
Gotcha. Noted. And I hope some gentlemen out there are noting that also, because Kathy is most definitely single, gentlemen. Please know that. And you're beautiful.
Lord, you're going to get people right there, Dr. Julissa.
I love it.
To be looking at these emails.
I'm playing matchmaker on the show.
Okay, we're going to get back on track. Okay. So that is great information to know. So between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., your body is heightened at that point.
Yes.
So that is a great time.
And I share that in my book as well. I talk about all of that within my book as well. Yeah. Go ahead.
I love that. Okay, so the next one, which I thought was very, very interesting also too, they talked about wanting to have an amazing orgasm, and they said that the best time to really concentrate on having the best orgasm is understanding when the blood accumulation makes your uterus heavy. And they stated that contractions are more heightened during the orgasm, and it talked about the clitoral tissue and how sensitive you are when you retain these types of fluids. So when your body is in this state, this is the best orgasm for the woman. Let's talk about that because I find that to be very interesting as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Now, when a man is, feeling a heightened sense of sexual desire, then what's happening here is that there's an increased blood flow to the genital region. And so he has the erection. So that's that blood flow that's causing the erection in the first place. With a woman, when a woman is in a heightened state of sexual desire, you have also a lot of blood flow that is going to her loins, and so the clitoris becomes slightly engorged, and her G-spot is also extremely stimulated. Now, why is that? Because there's the G-spot is actually comprised of erectile tissues that respond to extreme blood flow. And so yes, she will feel, and he will feel an increase of, for example, body heat, because rush of blood flow will cause that within the body. And as far as the contractions, when a woman is orgasming, she'll have some slight contractions and her vaginal muscles will contract a bit, almost as if she's holding her urine, letting go, holding her urine and letting go. The orgasm is similar to that kind of sensation, maybe a bit more rapid, and that those contractions are something that her partner also can feel pleasure from if he maintains, for example, penetration during the time that she's having the orgasm. Then most definitely he's also going to feel pleasure as she he will feel those slight contractions, and also feel that. And that's why I say for them to try everything in their power to try to see if they can go very slowly and try to climb the ladder of ecstasy slowly together, so that they can feel the energy between them surge, and that when they're just about to reach that heightened moment, then both can explode in pleasure, because he will feel a heightened orgasm as well if he's feeling her during her orgasm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Good information. I love that. Another area that they point out that is very important when it comes to sex is having sex and wanting sex to last longer. And one area, after reading what Dr. Watt stated, he says, you want to make sure that the time before you have sex, you build up to that. He says, start with flirting, start with intimate conversation, maybe preparing dinner, or maybe having a nice bubble bath waiting. You don't want to ever jump in and just do it. Have a slow build up and make sure that the timing is right. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Julissa? Is that something that you've shared with your patients as well?
Well, I feel that if a couple is constantly focused on the quote unquote quickie, then the intimacy will wane between them. It's just a desire to get to the end result fast, and that's it. Although that is important, I would imagine, with a couple, that if there's no way and they have such a desire for each other that it just has to happen, it must be now, I must have you now. I get that. Yes, perfect, wonderful. That can be part of those moments of coming together. But I don't feel that should be the only way that couples come together. I absolutely agree with what's stated there in the article, that at times a romantic evening of building up to that, having sensual foods in the dinner that, for example, they'll have together, knowing that, for example, a dessert like apple pie is something that tends to increase sexual desire in a man, knowing that, for example, incorporating and sprinkling capsicum or red cayenne pepper a woman on her meal will definitely put her pain sensors on alert and make her more sensitive and make her feel more of a desire for sex, and will enhance blood flow to the vaginal walls, which makes her more sensitive, and so she can achieve orgasm quicker. So little things like that, caressing, touching, talking, and all of that. I describe a lot of that within my book as well, where I state how taking time to look into each other's eyes. We talked about that in the past 4 principles that we talked about in the past 4 weeks, how taking that time to slowly just look into each other's eyes without speaking, with only movement, with only speaking with your eyes, speaking with your body, speaking with your touch, should be a time when you can do that as well. Sexy talk is wonderful too. Try that before then, and then try not speaking afterwards, and trying to help understand each other that way with just touch and looks and so on. So the build-up is wonderful. A man can definitely benefit from that as well, although women are seem to be thought of as the only ones that can benefit from that. Tantric sex teaches that, where, for example, just light touch and not actual penetration or clitoral stimulation can bring one to orgasm just from light touch and moving energies within the body. Is all of that is possible. Absolutely, I agree with it.
great information shared. Now, I want to transition over to another article, Dr. Julissa.
Yeah.
And, of course, again, Source Nation, any article that I source, I'll make sure to put that out on Facebook to where you can begin to read that at your leisure. Now, this next article is all about conditions which must be met for simultaneously obtaining an orgasm. And this is found in Jezebel.
Okay.
And they talked about, which I thought was very interesting, depending on the woman and depending on the man in regards to ejaculation, how you can actually obtain it and continue to have them consistently. Now, the one thing that they said is that you want to try to avoid roadblocks. And what they meant by roadblocks is that you want to make sure that you're not bringing stress into your intimate space.
Of course.
Because if you were to bring in stress into your intimate space, then enjoying your partner, enjoying the experience, and trying to obtain or achieve, orgasm or an ejaculation is not going to happen. So let's talk to Source Nation about that to give them a full understanding why they say that roadblocks can happen, but yet don't get frustrated if they do.
I feel it's extremely necessary for people to practice things such as, for example, even meditation or silent moments and so on, so that they can bring themselves to the present moment with their partner, leaving all other thoughts behind that would disturb the moment of intimacy. So I absolutely agree with that. Leaving stressors behind is necessary. Some people have a hard time doing that in today's day and age, but there are practices that they can bring into their lifestyle to help them do that. So agreed, if you bring stress into the bedroom, it will affect your sexual performance, period. We know time and again how a man will maybe have a problem, and I've had patients here tell me that he's thinking about their financial woes, and that's why he feels that he can't please his wife. And she's constantly worried about, let's say, issues with a child who is having issues with the law, and she can't focus on intimacy with her husband. And so I've had these two types of specific instances of couples that come into the office with these types of challenges. So yes, stress will definitely put a damper on the sexuality, and setting it aside will most definitely make them focus and be present in the moment to be able to feel each other rise and fall together, so they can try to reach that heightened moment of pleasure at the same time.
Okay. Now, also in the article, and I love statistics, and they actually put some statistics in here, and I want to read them to you and get your thoughts. Now, this is what they stated. They said roughly 75% of men in relationships always have an orgasm with their partner compared to 30% of women. They also stated that men's orgasms last around 5 to 10 seconds. Women's orgasms can last up to 15 seconds or more. What are your thoughts about that in reference to what they stated, that 75% of men in their relationships always have orgasms with their partners compared to 30% being of women? I find that a little fascinating. Would have thought women would be a little higher than 30%, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sure that many women out there can relate to feeling that they can reach orgasm quicker when they have specifically clitoral stimulation. And I've had many female patients that tell me that they cannot achieve orgasm through intercourse. And the challenge is this: if a woman is not positioning herself properly, then it will be more difficult for her to reach orgasm with only intercourse. She would have to position herself in a certain way also. First, let's for example talk about being stimulated as far as her G-spot. And I've written an article also, and kind of state that also in my book, but I've written an article as well regarding sexuality in women. And there's a diagram there, a scientific diagram of where the G spot is located. So one way that a woman can try to enhance her possibility of achieving orgasm with intercourse is by, for example, having if she's in a missionary position, laying on her back and her partner is on top, then having, for example, placing maybe pillows underneath the glutes to raise the hips so that his penis can actually stimulate the G spot as long as it can reach in that area. What happens is many times if a woman is just laying, right on her back, there is no stimulation from him truly to reach the G spot area. So a woman being on a slant in that way where her hips are raised will ensure a more direct stimulation of the G spot in that sense. Now, that's one. And a woman has to learn her body to the point that if, for example, he is the one that is, on his back and she is on top, she must understand her body to the point where she has, again, G-spot stimulation there, but also clitoral stimulation. That's the thing. The woman is going to need stimulation more than anything in those two areas, although, yes, if the vaginal walls are stimulated in a specific way, a woman could achieve orgasm that way. But if she's a woman that has challenges with circulation, if she's a woman that has challenges with, let's say, varicose veins or spider veins, then we know she already has a weakened circulatory system. And so stimulating orgasm from just intercourse by just stimulating the vaginal walls will be more difficult for a woman who has circulatory challenges like that. Meanwhile, one that has healthy circulatory system, then there's more blood flow getting to the vaginal walls, which makes her more sensitive, and she can achieve orgasm easier from being stimulated from the stroking of her partner, of the vaginal walls, just from regular intercourse. So that's the thing. Another is that and I've discussed this with also patients in my office, if she has her legs very widely open, for example, then she's not going to get that close stimulation where she may need it the most clitorally, and she may not be able to direct her or move her hips to be able to direct her partner during his stroking in and out, to be able to specifically stimulate her G-spot. So if she's just wide, she's not able to really control the direction of where the stimulation is happening. However, if she does close her legs, so for example, if she's on her back, because her partner is on top, then she can bring her legs underneath her partner, close her legs tightly, and then be able to move her hips side to side to be able to guide him to where he needs to stimulate her so she feels the pleasure directly where she knows she can orgasm. So that's some of the conversations that I actually have with female patients here in the office to help them with that, along with bringing in herbal therapies that I also describe in my book and in my articles to enhance their sensitivity so they're more sensitive to orgasm.
I love that because as you were speaking, I actually went through the article and was just looking at some different things that they were mentioning. Yeah. And they actually talked about, being able to define your terms, meaning understanding what you both want to get to the end result of being pleased and having that excitement and sexual experience together in the bedroom, because they stated that it's not fair if one has an orgasm and the other one doesn't. Okay, and I assume that there have been couples that have argued over the fact that, okay, how come you can be pleased and I cannot? How come you're reaching, your climax and I'm not? So they said define your terms so you both equally can share in the experience. Now, another area that I truly feel, and I'll tell you why I feel great about what they stated here, was a willingness to train. And what they meant by that is that you have to begin to bridge the gap of where you and your partner aren't understanding why you cannot reach an orgasm and why you cannot reach an orgasm together. Now, with that being said, I'm going to leave that right there. And I'm, of course, Source Nation, Dr. Julissa and I, and of course on other platforms, I've been able to talk about my experiences. So I want to talk about a story, not get into great detail, but I want to share something with the family here.
Okay. Now,
I was at a point in my life where I did have a roadblock, per se, right after going through my separation and my divorce. And, of course, I decided to date again almost a year after being divorced. And decided to date a young man that I actually dated in high school. So we knew about each other, and now in our adult lives, you know, we were reminiscing on high school, and now him being divorced and I'm being divorced, this is like a brand new relationship. And I can tell you, when we were intimate, Dr. Julissa, it was so hard for me to connect with him because I realized I really hadn't let go of what happened to me in my marriage. And the good thing about he and I, when I realized that there was a problem in the intimacy part, we actually sat down and talked about this, because at some point it did frustrate him, because he's like, I'm doing all this stuff and you're just there. What is it?
Right.
And we had to literally sit down. I had to let him know that I was still angry from that relationship, and then trying to focus on him and focus on us. It just was not working. And I remember when he looked at me and he says, how can I please you? And how can I love you?
Oh, what a
And I was blown away. Because I'm looking at him like, what in the world are you saying to me? I don't know. But he wanted to know. He was like, I need to know, what is it that you like? What do you want in the bedroom? So I had to show him how to love me in order for me to get to where he was already. So I like the fact that they state willingness to train, because it can be that we are putting up roadblocks. We are fearful to let go. We are allowing the stressors of the day, of our lives, to come into the bedroom, and we can't perform, and we are frustrated, and we don't know what to do.
Yes.
But the end result is making sure that, as I stated before, both of us are happy and both of us are being pleased and both of us can reach that time. So is that something that you've shared also with your couples?
And again, believe it or not, that's part of having to let go slightly of the ego. Let go of that. Where you're holding on to yourself from allowing another person to give you pleasure because of fear or resentments or whatever it may be. And that is part of that. That's exactly what I state in Principle 5 here. Absolutely. Letting go of that ego a bit to create a closer bond during intimacy. And I applaud you to having finally let go of that wall and show your partner what he needed to do so. In points where there's hidden emotions like that of, let's say, anger, resentments, unresolved forgiveness issues, and so on, those can most definitely be walls. And I talk about that also in the chapter in my book regarding emotions and how that affects the reproductive system. If we have that wall up, it can affect a man as far as his testicles. If a woman has that wall up, it can affect her to the point where it affects her as far as ovaries and ovulation. So I discuss all of that, and it's very important that we not have those things come in between the love and the intimacy that we deserve, the pleasure that we deserve. It's important to really let go. It's really scary for some people to let go. It's a scary they're scary two words that I've even been told by patients. That's scary, Dr. Julissa. I don't know if I can let go. And I understand, and we have to have compassion and understanding there, but it must happen for you to truly feel yourself healing, and so that you can be able to receive the pleasure and love that you really are deserving of.
Wow. Love it. They went on to say, and thank you for sharing that. They went on to say, of course, we've spoken about this, that communication is very important during this time in reference to achieving a great orgasm. We've already discussed position. We also talked about, just letting go of the ego. They say here, have a good attitude in reference to making love with one another and willing to try new and different things. We talked about the positions in your relationship to heighten the experience of orgasm. So that is great. What more could we say in reference to tonight's chapter, Dr. Julissa, proper timing of orgasms? What else could we give the Source Nation family about that?
I recommend for them to try this tonight with their partners, where maybe they've never actually done that. They've never actually decided to take a moment to try to just continue being in the moment of intercourse, taking it as slow as possible to the point that both of them feel the heat and warmth and energy surge between them, and that they both kind of tell each other, where they are, that I'm almost there. Okay, we're about to reach here, and try that where you're exploding together. It would be a different experience if you've never done so. If it's always been, well, let me take care of you first. Okay, now me. Okay, now we're done. It's something very different when you can do that with your partner and feel each other so deeply that you're able to time yourselves to explode together in sexual rapture and climax together. And so I recommend them to truly try that, because it'll be a different experience for them if they've never done so. It's a different level of intimacy when you can feel each other that deeply, to know when your partner is just about there and they can feel you as well, and to just do that and take your time achieving that. I promise you that you will be able to if you really have that desire. And remember that one thing that we did say, Kathy, that I mentioned in last week's show, is that studies show that in a relationship, when the sex is bad, it's 80% of the relationship. However, when the sex is good, it's only 20%. And so there are much richer aspects to a relationship when we know the intimacy part is wonderful. There's so many other aspects that enrich a relationship and create a higher percentage of what the relationship encompasses. So.
Love it. And then, of course, I always like to talk to the family members about if there's anything that we could do really to begin to keep our bodies healthy, especially if we're wanting to experience a nice orgasm. Is there anything that we can do for dietary, exercise? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, for the ladies, if you don't have issues of pain within your body and you're generally healthy, I love the effect of capsicum, red cayenne pepper, to incorporate that in your meals, incorporate sprinkling that in your meals, or it also comes in liquid form, incorporating that, a small teaspoon, for example, adding it to your food when you've already served yourself in the plate, doing that daily, or even using it in capsule form as capsicum. I recommend that to patients. And as far as herbal therapies, I also state that here in my book. I talk about aphrodisiacs as well, wonderful herbs like damiana and so on that I recommend for men and women to enhance their sexual drive and desire. And these are also herbs that help to enhance orgasm, because they also increase blood flow to the loins. So I do recommend considering incorporating some of those things into the diet. And they'll definitely feel the changes in just about a week or so. I have patients I just tell them, give me a week. I promise you'll love me.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Well, Dr. Julissa, thank you again for coming in tonight and giving us some great information, which is on Principle 5, and that is proper timing of orgasm. Of course, I always like to leave either with some encouraging word or maybe some tips and advice that we have not shared in tonight's conversation. If you wish to contribute, I would love for you to do so at this time.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be continuing another additional 5 weeks of the 10 principles that I state in my new book from pages 136 to 141 regarding the 10 principles of life preservation, sex, and Chinese medicine. That's what we'll be discussing also for the next 5 weeks. We're going on to Principle 6, and you can all obtain a copy on Amazon. And it also, for those of you that have friends or family members that are Spanish speaking, I've also written my book in Spanish and translated for all of you in need of that. And I look forward to more naughty talk next week, Kathy.
Love it. I am as well.
Okay.
Thank you again, Dr. Julissa, for coming in and share with Source Nation family and everyone listening tonight. Once again, how can we get more information about you? I continue to support you in your efforts.
Okay, you can find all my information at drjulissa.com. That's drjulissa.com. You'll find the information regarding my book and over 200 articles that I've written with information to share with all of you, so you can find the solutions to help your bodies achieve the healing and the optimum health that you deserve. Thank you. Thank you for having me once again, Kathy.
Thank you, Dr. Julissa. Again, we enjoyed speaking with you and definitely look forward to having you back in the studio again next week. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Good night, everyone.